Hi, this is Satima Fowler.
This is Michael Borlaug.
We are here today with Charles Bender, founding CEO of the Place of Hope, and we're so excited to talk to him today because Place of Hope serves such a unique and a much needed service in our community where we're helping abused children. And Post Top 100 is the place where we try to interview different leaders who are doing really successful things in the area, and we're trying to highlight and is applicable to anybody in this community. So with that, welcome Charles, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, glad to be here.
Thank you. So Mike, I know you have a burning question you want to ask Charles.
So I want to start from the beginning. Like, starting a nonprofit agency from zero is not easy. Can you talk about some of those initial steps, maybe some of the struggles along the way with starting this venture?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, thankfully for us, it's over 20 years ago. And our situation's maybe a little different than others. Really kind of depends on what you're launching. But I consider myself and pretty much most people on my team as social entrepreneurs. And so we are not just your average people that came up with an idea to launch. It takes a business mind and it takes a business savvy to run a successful nonprofit. For us, being the largest child welfare organization in this 6-county area and probably one of the largest in the state, obviously that didn't come overnight. And so the initial stages for us were, honestly, for the level of what we're doing, had we not had a great group of people and a tremendous church in Christ Fellowship, which actually is where everything came from and was launched from, and then we separated out as a nonprofit. Had we not had that basis early on, we probably would not be able to pull off what we have. And then from there, the community has adopted us in, and that's how we've been able to expand and do so much more. But not easy all those years. Definitely hurdles. Probably a lot of the same hurdles that every business has, because it's the only thing we can control is our expenses. We don't know what it's going to look like every year in terms of people's generosity and so forth. Although I will tell you, this is a generous community and has blessed us tremendously, allowing us to grow to have over 340 kids in our care on a daily basis.
That's great. So talking about expenses, none of this happens without funds.
Right.
So talk about some of your fundraising events. What's working for you? What's most successful for you to raise funds?
Absolutely. Well, there's a lot of charities out there, a lot of great charities, and a lot of great causes. So everybody kind of struggles in that every year. It's not an easy thing for any charity to do. But we're taking care of basically this community's neediest kids. These are the kids who have to be removed by the state of Florida for imminent danger. And so they cannot live at home for a period of time until the state and the judiciary can figure out how can we safely get them home. And sometimes it's never. And sometimes those kids will age out of foster care. Sometimes they're available for adoption. But the idea is to get them out of the system when you possibly can. And our model is very family-based and very faith-based. But the state's goal early on with this was to say the state of Florida has a role in this, but through privatization, which is how most good things are done, when the state partners with the private sector. They did that several years back in this state, and what that required was that we would all step up as a community and provide that other part. So the state will do its part, and basically the community has to match it financially. And so we have employed over 20 years ago a strategy to do that. We grant right to foundations. We make direct asks of our supporters. We're constantly meeting new people, and part of that is also renegotiating our government contracts. But we also do a lot of that fundraising through special events. And so just up here in the Treasure Coast, just last week we had our Sea of Hope luncheon where we had over 250 people get engaged and give generously, and that money just goes right back into this community, what we're doing here. Down south of here, where we extend all the way down to Boca and West Palm and the Gardens, a very similar matrix where we employ golf tournaments and clay shooting tournaments and luncheons and so forth. And what we do is we bring that in and we say, whatever we're able to do and pull off, we put all that into one big pie, and we take care of quite a few kids, human trafficking victims, homeless families with children, and so forth. This building that we're standing in front of as well today, that's the community stepping up with a lot of generosity to say, we agree Place Hope should have its headquarters up here, and so we're building it. And we're building it with private money, a little bit of legislative money that went into it as well. And so I think it's a team effort where everybody said, we want to be a part of that. We still have some to go, so we're working on that, but it's coming out of the ground.
Nice. You had a question.
So we've been coming So, how have those relationships impacted the work that you're doing, and what wisdom and guidance have you taken from those leaders and implemented in your daily practice that you're doing right here?
Absolutely. Well, so I launched Place of Hope along with Pastor Tom and Donna, the actual founders of the God gave the vision to them. And then shortly after that, they announced the vision at church, and I happened to be there, and that was about 25 years ago. And it was, again, without their leadership, and at a time also when the church was expanding, the church was building a new building across the street from where they had originally launched. There was quite a bit going on, and a huge impact in our community, which of course laid the groundwork for the future, being up here and in other places. So it was tremendous leadership that I got to witness. I was also thankful that at the time the pastor chose me to be his kind of go-between between a committee of people who stepped up to try to bring this to life. And I was there in those early stages. Of course, Pastor Tom calls me son. So I'm like an extra son for him, and I appreciate that. But I've been able to be at a launch of something huge, which became much bigger than we ever thought it would be. Of course, God has blessed it, continues to bless it, but it's been under the spiritual leadership of Pastor Tom, and now, of course, Todd and Donna and so forth. So I've grown up, if you will, professionally around some of the very best. And then what I mentioned earlier, it also excites me, is that this community as a whole, people even of other faiths who have stepped up and said, this is important, this is critical for our community, and we want to be a part of it. So we have got a tremendous team of supporters. But those guys have been very special in my life. In fact, Pastor Tom, which he's only kind of quasi-retired, as you know, he's actually going to be heading up the wedding of my daughter. So I'm excited. They're very special people in my life.
Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is, besides being founders of Treasure Coast Top 100, Mike and I are partners in a company called Capstone IT, where we service other companies with their computer networking needs. And one of the things that really works well for us is having customer testimonials on our website, because we feel like there's just, we could say how great we are, but it doesn't resonate as much as if our customers are telling other people how we're helping them with their business. So we saw a lot of videos on your website for Place of Hope. Can you talk about why you do those videos? Why it's important?
Yeah, well, I think it's very critical. As you said, any business needs to have testimonials, because there's a lot of options and choices for people to do, whether you're building pools or doing IT or child welfare, taking care of kids, homeless families. There are a lot of options in the charity world for people to get involved. And so for us, testimonials are very powerful. And I'll also tell you that way back when Pastor Tom and I were talking years and years ago, I remember that he said, we don't need to just launch another church ministry. If we're going to take care of these kids, it has to be done with high quality, and it has to have results. Well, that got me excited right away, because my background was running homeless shelters, and I saw where it was done correctly. I saw where maybe sometimes it wasn't. And so that is really the formula for everything about Place of Hope. It's high quality, and the kids and the youth really matter. And so we've seen that come to fruition. We have some tremendous stories. We're working right now on our 6th owner of a Habitat for Humanity home. So if you think about this, Habitat's a great organization. You think about what they do is permanency in people's lives, giving them the stability for their own families. And that most often does not happen with kids who grow up in the foster care system and oftentimes age out of that system. The statistics are horrible for them, where they end up homeless, incarcerated, pregnant, on public welfare programs. And so for us to have these kids that are coming out and making it, like as I said, our 6th Habitat for Humanity owner, but we also have kids who are now in the middle of their college careers. They are coming back, they're working at Place of Hope. We're breaking those statistics together, but it is truly a community effort, because it's the community, it's the churches, it's the temples, it's the government doing its part, and business as a whole just supporting us through these events and the other things that we do. So the testimonials are absolutely critical.
And that applies to any business or whatever product or service you sell. So I have to, I am so excited to have met you today. I think finding something like this, and then getting the resources to pull this off, it's not easy. Can you talk about when you hit a roadblock, like what is your mindset on how, when everybody's telling you it can't be done, what goes through your head?
Well, there's variations. For us, it's been, for instance, coming up to the Treasure Coast from Palm Beach County. Many years back, we had some folks in leadership up here that asked us to circuit up here, this 4-county area. And for us, you know, that was very entrepreneurial because, again, even if you just look at the baseline, it takes about half of what we do to financially has to come from the community, the other half from government, depending on the program. But for what we were doing up here, you know, we knew that overnight we were going to have to raise some significant money to take care of these kids. For us, it was a calling, and so we felt like, okay, God was giving us the clearance to go, and what He's going to start, He's going to provide for. So that's one level of it that is tremendous that we have on our side. But the other is just like any other business. You've got to look at the numbers. You have to see how sustainable you are, if it goes this direction or if it goes this direction. And so far, we've been able to do that. You know, we're very conscious of our cost. Charity Navigator, an independent rating agency nationally, rates us at the very top of their scale, and they're looking at those things that any business should look at on their own as well. And that is how much do we spend on overhead? How much do we spend on the kids directly and the families? And all that checks out with them. And they're an independent rating organization, so they rate you whether you want them rating you or not. And so all that stuff's good, and those are the metrics that really any business should operate off of. And so that's kind of how we try to do it. Run it just like every other business would, with the idea that, you know what, we're trying to help more kids. You know, there's a limit to everything, so I can't say we're going to continue to grow forever. That's not what we're trying to do, but we're trying to keep our quality high and take in as many kids as we can.
Sure. And I think the faith-based, you know, you kind of basically said, look, we had a calling, and that's kind of what drove you, a higher power. And whether you know, whatever your beliefs are, I think your passion can, you know, it needs to be there, because when things get tough, that's your belief system is kind of what keeps you going and not give up. So we're so excited to have met you today and be here talking to you, especially at the ground floor level here. I can't wait to see what this is going to look like when it's completed. Do you have any last words of advice for other leaders out there?
I do. If you're smart, you'll remember that you might consider yourself a leader, others might consider you a leader, but real leaders simply surround themselves with the greatest of people. And so I've got Jamie Bond up here in the Treasure Coast running efforts for us. There's nobody better than her at what she does. I've got people like Jamie down in the south and down to Boca that are the best of the best. And so people want to deal with people they can relate to. They want to deal with people they can trust. And so just because you're a charity doesn't mean you shouldn't do everything with excellence, and that you shouldn't try to hire the very best people you can. And obviously there's constraints to that for all of us, but we hold a very high standard. My team understands it. Everybody on the team is behind it and gets it, and they want to keep it up here, and that's how those ratings come in, and that's how people want to get involved. People want to be involved in excellence. So whether it's your IT company or this place next door or Place of Hope, people want to engage and invest where there's excellence, and so we owe people that. And so if you're a charity leader or if you're just a business leader, people are going to invest in you and they're going to purchase something from you. As you know, they can go a lot of different places. They can invest in a lot of different places. And so we just feel like we have to keep our standard high because people deserve that. And after all, in our business, they're giving freely. We're not providing a product. And so we owe them that much. So that part's kind of easy for us, but just getting the right people to understand it.
Excellence and the right people.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for watching. And if you want to be interviewed or want to get in touch with us, you can go to www.treasurecoasttop100, all one word, .com. We hope to meet you soon.